Could the Trump fraud case be the unexpected spark igniting the truckers' strike in New York? This isn't a question we'd typically consider, is it? But let's dive in. The Trump fraud case, a whirlwind of controversy, and then there's the truckers' strike, a mass protest stirring up its own storm. At first glance, they may seem like two separate storms brewing, but could they be more interconnected than we realize? Keep in mind, every action has a reaction. And in politics, these reactions can ripple far and wide. Now, let's rewind the clock and delve into the roots of the Trump fraud case. Like a tale spun out of a political thriller, the saga began with whispers of financial irregularities. The murmurs grew louder and louder until they could no longer be ignored. And so, the investigation into Donald Trump's financial dealings was launched. The backbone of the case was built around allegations of tax fraud, insurance fraud, and falsification of business records. The prosecution painted a picture of a businessman who, they claimed, manipulated the system to his advantage. They pointed to instances of inflated assets and undervalued liabilities, all allegedly done to secure loans or reduce tax liabilities. As the trial unfolded, we witnessed a parade of witnesses, each revealing another piece of the intricate jigsaw puzzle. Former employees, business associates, and even family members were called to testify. The courtroom was a theater of revelations, with each day bringing new twists and turns. Then came the day that would send shockwaves across the nation, the day of the verdict. The jury, after days of deliberation, found Donald Trump guilty. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of the decision hanging heavy in the air. It was a moment that would be etched into the annals of American history. But what followed was not silence but a cacophony of reactions. Supporters cried foul, decrying the verdict as a political move. Detractors saw it as a long-awaited accountability for a man they believed had played fast and loose with the rules. With Trump's guilty verdict, a wave of discontent started to spread, reaching corners you wouldn't expect. The ripples of this verdict would soon reach the truckers of New York, sparking a strike that would shake the city to its core. But that, dear listeners, is a story for another time. Parallel to the political turmoil, a storm was brewing among the truckers of New York. This storm, my friends, was not born out of the clear blue sky. It had its roots in the dissatisfaction and discontent that had been simmering within the trucking community for quite some time. The origin of the truckers' strike can be traced back to the fallout from the Trump fraud case. The verdict, declaring Trump guilty, was seen as a symbol of a system that the truckers felt was increasingly rigged against them. They saw it as a reflection of their own struggles, their own battles against a system they perceived as unjust and unfair. But what exactly were their grievances? In essence, the truckers were fighting against a myriad of issues, from the rising cost of fuel and maintenance to the increasing regulations that they believed were stifling their ability to make a living. They felt sidelined, ignored by a government more concerned with political games than with the livelihoods of its hardworking citizens. And so they decided to take a stand. The strike began as a small spark, a handful of truckers deciding to park their rigs and refuse to drive. But like a wildfire, it quickly spread. More and more truckers joined in, their ranks swelling with each passing day. Their trucks, once symbols of their livelihoods, became tools of protest, a public display of their dissatisfaction and defiance. The strike was not without its challenges. There were those who opposed them, who saw their protest as an inconvenience, a disruption. But the truckers stood their ground. They persevered, their resolve fueled by their belief in their cause. They weathered the storm of criticism and backlash, their spirits unbroken. As the strike gained momentum, it began to capture the attention of the public. The media started to take notice, and stories about the truckers and their strike started to appear on news outlets across the country. The truckers found themselves in the public eye, their cause becoming a national discussion. And so, while the political world was embroiled in the aftermath of the Trump fraud case, another battle was being fought on the roads of New York. A battle that, in many ways, mirrored the larger struggles of our society. As the strike gained momentum, the truckers found themselves in the public eye, their cause becoming a national discussion. Now, you might be wondering, how does a political scandal correlate with a truckers' strike? Well, it's all about how one event can set off a chain reaction, impacting areas you might not initially consider. Consider this. The Trump fraud case was a high-profile event that captured the attention of the nation. It was a polarizing issue, creating divisions and stirring up emotions. This charged political climate influenced public opinion and the response to the truckers' strike. The truckers, like so many others, were drawn into the vortex of this political storm. Their strike became a symbol, a platform to voice dissatisfaction, not just with their working conditions or wages, but with the perceived injustices and corruption at the highest levels of governance. The strike, initially about labor disputes, soon became a reflection of the broader public sentiment, a mirror reflecting the discontent and frustration with the political establishment. It's a common phenomenon where political events and social movements often intersect, feeding off each other, amplifying their impact. The truckers' strike was not just about the truckers. It was about every American who felt unheard, who felt that the system was rigged against them. It was about the disillusionment with politics and the desire for transparency, accountability, and justice. This intersection of politics and protest is a powerful force. It can transform a localized labor dispute into a national movement, galvanizing people, creating unity and shared dissatisfaction, and sparking calls for change. The Trump fraud case and the truckers' strike might seem unrelated on the surface, but they are intrinsically linked through the thread of public sentiment and response. They reflect the pulse of the nation, the undercurrents of dissatisfaction, and the desire for change. In a climate of political unrest, the truckers' strike took on a new dimension, becoming more than just a labor dispute. It became a symbol, a rallying cry for change, a testament to the power of the people when they make their voices heard. So, what does this all mean for the truckers, the public, and the country at large? Well, let's start with the economy. The trucking industry is a vital cog in the American economic machine. When the truckers strike, the ripple effects spread far and wide. Deliveries are delayed, shelves are left empty, and businesses, large and small, feel the pinch. The longer the strike continues, the greater the impact on the economy. For the public, this situation serves as a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of our society. It's not just about a fraud case or a strike, it's about how the actions of one individual can impact the lives of many. It's about how a verdict in a courtroom can lead to a trucker refusing to start his engine in New York. It's about how a dispute over political matters can disrupt the flow of goods and services that we often take for granted. Looking ahead, this scenario also holds significant implications for future political events. It's a powerful demonstration of the influence that politics has on our daily lives, and it could potentially motivate more people to take an active role in political discourse. It could prompt more scrutiny of political figures, more calls for transparency, and more demands for accountability. On a broader scale, it could lead to a shift in the political landscape. It could inspire new voices to emerge, new movements to form, and new solutions to be sought. It could spark a wave of change that reshapes the political arena. So, while the Trump fraud case and the truckers' strike may seem like isolated incidents, they're part of a larger narrative. They're threads in a complex tapestry of socio-economic and political dynamics. They're catalysts that can trigger a chain reaction, affecting not just the truckers or the public but the very fabric of our society. As we've seen, the fallout from the Trump fraud case and the truckers' strike is far-reaching, affecting more than just the parties directly involved. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to summarize what we've learned. Our journey began with the unveiling of the Trump fraud case, a whirlwind of allegations and fact-checking that shook the political landscape. We dove into the specifics, uncovering the pattern of dishonesty that persisted throughout Trump's political career, and the impact of his actions on the public's trust. From there, we transitioned to the truckers of New York, who, in response to the guilty verdict, staged a strike that brought the city to a standstill. We explored how these everyday workers became symbols of protest, their actions a direct response to the political events unfolding around them. Next, we delved into the intersection of politics and protest, examining the intricate web of influence and reaction. We saw how the verdict in the Trump fraud case wasn't just a legal matter, but a catalyst that sparked a wave of actions and reactions, reaching as far as the hard-working truckers of New York. Finally, we discussed the ripple effect of these events. We considered how the strike has affected daily life in New York, the economy, and even the national discourse. This single verdict didn't just reverberate within the courtroom walls, its impact was felt far and wide, causing ripples that continue to shape our society. Remember, in our interconnected world, no event stands alone. Each has its echoes, and in this case, the echo was heard loud and clear by the truckers of New York.